pair of seniors now, but I was actually in Stone previously in my first business. And my first business was called Pack International Marble Supply. It doesn't exist anymore, thank God. So I want to try something right now. For everybody that's sitting down right here, you ever seen those spy movies where you reach under your seat and you grab something? There's like an envelope right there. So reach under your seat actually, because there is something under there.
Oh, for real?
And you're gonna feel a pen. You're gonna feel a paper. It's right in the middle of the chair. There you go. A little bit of shameless marketing. If everybody wants something back there, Nicole is over here. She'll be able to give you one. Slight shameless marketing, but you know what? In the end, I'm a businessman. I want you to write down your why. Why are you here? What's this week about this week? Put it in a sentence. It could be one word. It could be whatever. Write down your why. I'll give you a minute for that. And if you don't know, put a big question mark. All right. Now that you've got that why in your mind, take that, fold it, put it away. We're going to get back to that. So at the beginning I said the why is a journey. It's something that you start with. So the only way I can tell you about how that actually applies to business or life or anything along those lines is telling you my story. So I started my first business in Stone, and frankly, my why at the beginning was somebody else's why. It wasn't mine. It wasn't my personal why. I did this because I worked with my brother, and I wanted to start a business, but he had a totally different kind of idea as to what he wanted to do and how he wanted to go with it. So if you would have asked me 15 years ago to write down my why then, I would have put a question mark. And I would have had trouble with that. So I ended up traveling to Pakistan. I lived there for 3 years. Pretty wild place, actually. Great place to live, great people, had a lot of fun over there. But when I got there, I noticed, I'm like, uh-oh, what am I doing here? This is a little different. I really wasn't expecting to walk into a third world country, a dry country, no alcohol is allowed. It was just a very different culture. It was a culture shock, I'll be honest. I walked out of that plane and it was a full-on culture shock. And I started to regret what I was doing over there. But I was there. I had to do it. I had a job to do. I had a company. It was my company. I owned it. So I was going to make the best out of it. And I went through this time period of learning what my why was. And I changed from having somebody else's why at the beginning, my brother's why, I was sharing his why, to I started to kind of change and start to learn what my personal kind of requirements were for my business and how I wanted to kind of proceed in my entrepreneurial journey that I knew I was going to go on. And during that time, I found out that I wanted to have roots in a country. I wanted to be part of something. I wanted to help people locally. I wanted to be closer to family. My why started to change in the 3 years that I was there. It started to grow. It became like this. I knew that it had to be about me. And that's the beauty of this. Is your why is yours. It's not anybody else's. It's your type of why. So I learned all these things. I moved to Egypt just to make things even more difficult and really find out what my why was. And I remember I used to live next to a mosque. And I used to hear the prayers in the morning and everything, and I enjoyed that. I loved it. I enjoyed listening to it. I would walk around this country, and I really enjoyed what I would see in the food and the people that I met. And then I learned that I love being around people. I love talking to people. I love engaging with people. I started to ask people their why. I started to learn about their why. That's when I became inquisitive about learning from others to change me. And that was the great thing. So me just being here around you is actually I'm learning something here. And then, after Egypt, I went back to Florida, and then I moved to Dayton. I never thought I'd move back here. I'm going to be really honest with you. I came back here. My parents had the idea to start a home health company. I didn't really like the home health side of things. I liked home care. I liked the personal touch of people. I started really getting into what home care was and really learning about it. I learned that Comfort Keepers were started in Springfield, Ohio. So one of the largest franchises in the country was started in Springfield. I started reading what they did. All these little things that I learned through living in Pakistan and living overseas, the personal side of things, the way to connect with people, home care started really, that changed me. I connected to that. My grandfather lived with us. I figured, I can help people. Plus, on top of it, I like the challenge and I love to be in a city. I can move back to Dayton. This is good. I can still be an entrepreneur, get investment. I can go find funding. Plus, the biggest thing that I learned while I was in Pakistan is that I like to be challenged. I like to be challenged with people. I like to be challenged with ideas, concepts, everything. And I figured that in being in home care is totally unregulated, fully. Meaning anybody can do whatever they want in home care. They don't have to tell the government doesn't oversee you. And that, to me, was a very good challenge because now I could actually do and think and do what I wanted to do. My why continued to change through this whole period of time until I end up in Dayton, Ohio. And now I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and my why is very different than what it was 10 years ago. I came to Dayton with an idea of what I wanted to do, with a concept of what my why was, and how it had changed. It did change and it grew with me. But now I'm in Dayton, now I get to actually practice what I wanted. I get to practice the concept of helping people. So we raise money for Alzheimer's. I get to help seniors. I do it on a daily basis with the senior population, being able to help them. My why is continuing to change and continuing to move through this whole process. It's a pretty amazing feeling, but the beauty of it is that it's a journey. It's something that takes you, and you have to actually embrace it and enjoy it. I know a lot of people have a why, and it could be somebody else's why. You may think that you do have a why, and you guarantee that you do, and whatever it is, you should embrace it. So now I'm in a position to where my why is everything that I've had from the past, and now it's changed now. But now I'm going to my third business, more than likely. It's already opened, actually, but we're not really coming out with the concept just as of yet. That is another version of what my why is. So the version of what my why is now is still everything that has come from the past. I like products. I like, in manufacturing stone, I got to manufacture very singular products that were consistent. Everything was the same. There was no change, there was no difference in it. And I miss that. I mean, the business that I'm in right now, I'm in the people business. So people are all different. Everybody's totally different. And technically, my product is people, and I match people with people, and I love that part of it. But now I see with my third business that the change is coming, and it's another version of my why. So my why in home care is one thing. My why in my future business is another thing. And my why in my next business and my next business and my next business is always going to be something different, but it's still going to be a piece of what I had in the past. And I think the most important part about your why is what makes it important to you. What is your part of it? What do you enjoy about it? What do you enjoy about yourself? That's a pretty big deal right there. How do you do that? How do you go through that? And in doing so, I've come full circle. Back to Dayton as well. I don't know if Dayton will be the last part, who knows? How many people here actually own businesses right now? I love this. How many are starting a business right now? How many are going for funding right now? Yeah. So everybody's why is very different. And it's going to change as you go through each of those steps. You're going to change when you go through the funding part, when you go through the startup part, to when you go through, I already have a business and I'm functioning. How many people have changed their why throughout this time period of the years of funding and everything? How many people have never changed it and have continued it? Okay. So everybody knows that this thing changes. The importance of the why is what makes us who we are. That's the best part of this. So, when you look at the why, you look at how it changes, and when you look at something along with my story, and you look at how life can take you through different places, and different countries, and different businesses, you start to find that the importance of the why really becomes the best part of it. So, I have run through my talk actually quite quickly, funny enough. So I want to actually, does anybody have any questions I want to ask? Do we have any questions here about the why?
Don't be shy.
Yeah, please don't be shy. No one has any questions? Okay. Go ahead.
So, how important is your why to apply that to your employees?
Yeah. The importance of the why to applying it to the employees. It's a good question. I find that your why becomes part of your vision of your business, and the most important part, in my opinion, of a business is that vision that you have and where you go to. And being able to actually tell people about that why and where that is going to go and the direction that it's going to go in the future is something that's very important to be able to tell your employees. I think it's easier when you have a couple employees, and it becomes more and more difficult as that starts to grow to get 10, 15, 20 employees. It's a very difficult part to really get out there to people. So really understanding your why and really being okay with yourself and being able to go on that journey with yourself is hugely important. Your employees are going to benefit from it immensely.
Was there a time when a situation presented itself that was against your why, and what did you do about it? Was there a time where a situation presented itself that was against your why, and how did you handle it?
I think there was a time when, on my first company with Packer International, the business was going in a direction that, frankly, it was the economic downturn at that point. The housing market was just going all the way down. And you could see it, you could see people struggling, you could see everything. The concept of where the business was going to go was very different than what I really wanted at that point. And I felt that the business itself was going in a direction that was so against my values, because my why was made up of my values, that I ended up actually leaving the business and walking away from a business that I had built over 4 years. And that's a very tough thing to do, is to walk away from a business that you've built. But I think when you start to believe in yourself and you believe in what your why is and how that kind of takes you through life, then you're okay with making a decision like that, because you can still move on from it and actually move into something different and something new. And it ended up taking me here. It ended up taking me into home care. My why changes actually, even with being engaged and in the future of having children and getting married. All of this actually changes how I do my business and what business I actually how I want my business to function. Any other questions?
As entrepreneurs, we're all starting different ideas. Like you said, your why is changing, so you're starting your third business right now. How do you balance those ideas that you have and the additional whys or within your primary one, what you're doing right now, with staying focused on what you're doing today, not just kind of going out and chasing every single additional why that you have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can answer that by saying that my why is like a litmus test, essentially. If it goes outside of that litmus test, then I can't really get into that type of business or move into that kind of vertical that I want to move into. It still has to stand true to what I'm doing. And it's actually quite nice, because it is a black and white system that I can look at, and if it doesn't fit, then I'm not doing it. And that keeps me in check. So the next business is part of what I'm used to. It's actually still a product. It's a new product. It's consistent. It's the same thing over and over again. The business challenge is still there. The marketing challenge is still there. The people challenge is there, reaching new people. And that as long as it checks those boxes, then it's a matter of, do I have the time to do it? Can I actually do it? Do I want to do it? First off, because it does take time. I think when I first considered what to do with this next business, the question was, when is the right time to actually start this and move on with it? And it probably was 6 months after that what I was doing in my current business was going to help the future business. Being able to pass off, or not pass off, but being able to give other work parts that I'm used to doing, billing, payroll, so on and so forth. I can actually have somebody else do that and think about how to grow the business. And through that even process, my why becomes more and more and more defined at that point right there. Yes, sir.
You talk a lot about a mix of sort of personal, professional, and even economic lives, right? And all coming together. How do you delineate between those? Keep them sort of, do you compartmentalize them? Do you intertwine them? And an overarching kind of just sort of my personal belief.
Between business, personal, economic, socioeconomic, whatever, political, it all kind of goes together. I think it's very hard to differentiate between business and personal. As much as anybody wants to say that that's something that I think we can do it if we really try to. But your business is your personal choice. It becomes a part of you. I look at my office as like a second home. I have a couch in there, I can sleep on it. I treat it as though it's my home. So I like to have the connection between the 2 or 3 or however many, because it adds that kind of emotional, personal side to something. It makes it not just about money, because it's not just about money. Business is not about money. Business is about fulfillment. Business is about changing things, changing lives, being able to help people for that matter. So I think as you go through that process, accepting the fact that those are important to you is hugely important. And it makes it much easier too, because now you're not really deciding, okay, well, this is a business decision versus a personal decision. If you have kids and your business requires that you be away from your children, but that's the most important part to you, you have a decision to make. And some people will make the decision to be with the business and the business only. Others will choose children. For me, we just got a dog. So for me, it's really easy. I just take my dog to the office now. And that's the beauty of that. It's my office. It's where I reside there. It's an address. I get to go there. So it's like my home.
It's kind of a hindsight question.
I'm actually going to give you the mic. I'm coming behind you. He's like, where's that voice coming from?
All right. Kind of a hindsight question, because you've been running businesses for the last, what's called 15 years, right? The way you've changed your why and the effect of it changing culture within the different organizations that you've been in was loaded. And the speed at which you're able to do it, or were able to do it then versus how you're making decisions now that change your why and move through stuff. I guess my question is, how have you changed your mindset to be able to make such quick decisions now that affect so many people, plus because you have employees that are actually in the field now, taking care of people and families' lives?
When I first started, I was really bad at it. It took me a long time to make decisions. It took me a long time to get through really easy decisions, because you just overthink it. And through that time period, I just started to just become better at it, practicing at it. And a lot of the decisions as a business owner are not easy. They're not. And that's why I say the why is your litmus test. Your mission, I think you could even say that your mission and your why are almost interchangeable. If it doesn't fit, then it doesn't fit. You can't lie to somebody. You can't lie to yourself about it. So I think I've gotten better through practice. I think I've gotten better through making certain decisions and sticking with them and knowing that it's for the right reasons. And I think that my why actually becomes stronger the more I get in and I get into my business life. Because mind you, I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years now, but I'm not done. I'm 38 years old. It's probably, I know it's not going to be my last business. I hope not. That would not be fun. But at the same point, some people may have one business and that's going to be the only business that they have, and that dedication that they have to that is great, and you still can change your why through that period of time. That's why it's so important.
How do you find people that will align with your vision?
That's a great question. Finding people that will align with the vision. So I'll do a backstory. Probably about a year, two and a half years ago, give or take, I walked into my office and I walked right back out. I mean, it was palatable how the energy was just negative in there. People know when there's negative energy around. You walk into a room, really negative. And you walk in, and I remember I just turned right back and I walked out the door. And they all looked in, calling me and saying, hey, you coming in? You coming in? I'm like, no, I'm taking the day off. And I started on this journey of talking with a business coach, which I think is really important for everybody. And going through that kind of journey, I noticed that mission, that why, that vision, there's ways to find out who enjoys it, who embraces it, and it's just as simply as asking about it and asking people and your employees, and you start to see that they are engaged in that mission. It's not about whether or not they can memorize the mission or the vision or not. It's more so, can they practice it? And do they practice it openly? And do they, when you bring it up, do they embrace it in that respect and can recite it back to you, and you can have a conversation about that? And that was pretty amazing. So through the period of time from that 2.5 years ago till now, the office, my personal office now, is a whole 180-degree difference than what it was before. People walk in, I mean, they recite the vision and they recite the mission. That's one part. They know it. They embrace it. But more than anything else, when talking to somebody else, they're using bits and pieces of that mission. And that mission started from my why. I mean, it took me 6 months to write 1 page in 80 words. But 6 months to do that. That's values, mission, vision. And it took a lot of introspective and a lot of time to actually really put that on paper. And you open yourself up, especially when you open yourself up to your employees. And that was a very positive side. But when you see people latch onto it, and you see them talk to other people about it, and they use it when they talk to employees, and they say, you use this value and you did it so perfectly. And the employee, like your employees are like, yeah, I did that on purpose because I like it. Something I wanted to do. That practice was, I mean, you can't find anything better than that. From there, it just takes off. I mean, I've watched it now turn into something of its own. And honestly, I think that's what's allowing me to do a third business, is the fact that people are engaging in it. You know, my current manager, her name is Kim. I asked her, I said, where do you want to be in 5 years? The quintessential question that everybody loves to ask. And she looked at me and she said, I want your job. A lot of entrepreneurs actually look and get a little intimidated and say, if you take my job, what am I going to do? She's like, I want your job. And I'm like, I love that. You want my job? She's like, I want you to go do something else. Or go do bigger things for our current business. Or a little thing that you work on privately, go do that. And that was powerful. So I think it's communication, I think it's asking questions, I think it's really sticking to your guns about it. And when you're hiring, you get to ask questions along those lines as well to really kind of work into people and see where their head's at, see what they're about. But you never know in the end. People will accept it or not accept it. So.
When you're hiring to that commitment culture type of style, how do you avoid groupthink, where everybody buys into the why and someone's afraid to speak up against that why, or something they feel might be aligned with that why, but there might be a bad decision even though it does align with the why?
Again, that comes down to culture and how you are in your business? It's a great question too. If anybody didn't hear, the question is people who don't want to go, right? They listen to the why, they heard the why, they have an idea, but they don't say anything because it may go against the why. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a culture thing. I've seen business leaders where people can't speak up, and that's a culture thing. It starts from up top. For me, I'm very open and honest about everything. I'm open about how much I get paid in the office. I'm open about, what our direction is, where we're going. As far as the way I like to look at it is, as long as I have a direction where we want to go, I'm totally okay with how we get there. And definitely it's not going to be my way, obviously, and I don't frankly want it to be my way. When the empowerment starts to come through and you start to see people kind of embrace the direction that you're going to go into, then that stops happening. Then they speak up and say, well, you know what, I kindly disagree with this decision. Can we do it this way and still get the same outcome? Then you start to really get this conversation, this open dialogue of where you're going and what you're doing. That's the most important thing, is the open dialogue. But again, sticking to the mission, the vision, the values, that why, is exactly sticking to that and using it. It's hard. I mean, it took 2 years before I started to see some traction with it. But now, once you start to see the traction, it goes off and it takes off. And now it's happening while I'm not here and my office is still running. They're making decisions without me, and I love it. And I don't have to ask about it. And I just know things are going where they need to go. That's the beauty of it. It's a nice way to settle back in your team. It's easier to do it with more than one, more people than just one person doing it by themselves. It's very stressful to do it by yourself.
So obviously 15 years, you've seen a lot of Murphy's Law, so maybe you can talk a little about embracing the changes of technology, how you've been able to grow the business, but also stay to your core why and home care and all that.
Yeah. I think the only way for home care to survive is through the use of technology, frankly. I think the use of technology makes our lives easier. I don't think it's an answer to everything, but it is an answer to customer service type situations. It's an answer to being able to offer people information much quicker than before. I was having a conversation earlier about using it to actually change the way you're doing your HR systems. The use of technology over the past 15 years has changed so much. I mean, just the introduction of Facebook. I can hire people on Facebook now. I mean, that's amazing. And I can actually geo-fence exactly where I want them. That's the best part. And I really enjoy that. So I feel technology is probably one of the most important factors that allows a business to become more efficient in getting to their goal, and maybe even getting there quicker. If you're not going to embrace technology, then you'll get there. It's just it's a choice in the end. I think a lot of my clients love the fact that we use technology. But then when I was in Pakistan, I mean, barely had internet there. That's a tough thing over there. It's tough to even use a phone over there. So depending on where you're doing business is going to affect how your technology is going to come through. Anybody else? Because then we'll get back to the book.
Would you say that through your traveling experience and different cultures you encountered, do you think that affected or changed your why, or do you think it would be the same if you stayed in the U.S.?
It totally affected me. Being in Pakistan and sitting at a stoplight and you have people next to you and they openly carry AK-47s and guns. I mean, it's the Wild West over there for the most part. And when you see that, you lose a certain amount of, you lose this family you had before. I've never seen something like that. I mean, even going down just to being able to have just regular water, that affected my why. I mean, all through that time period, I really got to learn, do I want something? How hard do I want to work for having a business? Do I want to go travel around the world to go have a business? No. I want to be in a place. I want to have a family. I want to get married. Those are important to me. That's me. I think for other people, it's different. At the beginning, my why, I wanted to travel. And I jumped at it, and I embraced it, and I loved it. And then through that time period, you start to change your why. And I think there are people that don't embrace it. And that's the most important part, just embrace your why. So I know time's coming up right now, because we got about 5 minutes. So, if you pull your cards back out, and back to the why, and you look back at the first part that you wrote, for your week, knowing that your why has changed, if you've never changed your why, would you change your why? No. Okay. And if you wouldn't change it doesn't matter if you do or if you don't. It's just a matter of actually being aware of your why and actually thinking about your why, whether or not it can change. So, everybody's next to somebody here, so you can turn around and meet somebody. I'm sure everybody's met somebody. Shake a hand, turn around to them, and then, introduce yourself. Hey.
Hi, I'm
Bernard.
Nice to meet you.
And now do this. Tell them your why. Why are you here? And tell them.
Ha ha ha.